Welcome and thank you for joining us here this afternoon, especially as we're competing for your attention with Olympian Laura Kenny next door. So while we can't tell you how to get into the Olympics, we can tell you how to expand your business to the Middle East. So take your pick. No one's leaving, thank you. My name is Caroline Cartellieri. I'm a portfolio non-executive director with 25 years experience in retail, hospitality and consumer goods. I advise boards and investors on digital transformation, marketing, strategy, and technology. I also founded and ran my own e-commerce venture in the US, and I've invested in a number of startups along the way. So as an investor, I've got to make choices on where to put my money, just like you as investors and entrepreneurs have to make choices about that. So where do you go today? US, Europe, UK, each of them have their downsides. In the UK and Europe, you get lots of tax and red tape. The US is not exactly welcoming to foreign investors right now. And let's not even mention tariffs. So how about the Middle East? Notwithstanding current turmoil, you've got 300 million young and tech-savvy consumers. You've got governments that are, by and large, keen to attract startups. And you've got lots of funding. However, it is important to be aware that there are also cultural differences that every investor and entrepreneur needs to know how to navigate in order to avoid costly mistakes. And also bear in mind that the MENA arena, as one of my panelists likes to call it, is not one country. It stretches all the way from Morocco to Pakistan. So understanding and knowing how to overcome those cultural differences is absolutely key. So I'm therefore super excited to have this panel here today of outstanding business leaders who have all taken their business to the Middle East and have some fantastic stories to tell about the experience. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my panel. On my left, you've got Ash Traore. Ash runs White Label Loyalty, which is a loyalty engine that powers enterprise businesses. 75% of their business is international, and a big part of that is in the Middle East. They're currently running the loyalty program that powers all of Dubai and is now the second largest in the region. Ash works closely with the local governments there and has some really crucial advice for anyone starting out. Mani Singh is a highly experienced digital marketing leader and the CEO of Bobble Digital, an award-winning digital marketing agency based here in Dubai. He has many years' experience working for a variety of national, international, and local brands using digital channels like PPC, social, video, etc., to drive sales and brand value across organizations and different sectors, including retail, sports, finance, property, education, manufacturing, and so on. Michael Ruggier was with Shell International for 24 years, specializing in new technology development and early field deployment of novel technologies, with his last 7 years at Shell as a game changer, turning radical and disruptive ideas into reality. Michael's passion is to solve the world's biggest challenges and meet net zero goals in the shortest possible time. He's now focused entirely on sustainable agriculture as the CEO and founder of Airponics. Airponics just won Fast Company's World-Changing Ideas Award. Give a round of applause to Michael, please. He's taken Airponics to Saudi Arabia and Algeria and has some fascinating stories to tell. And then last but by no means least, Nick Halliday, who is the founder and CEO of IDS, among other brilliant companies, and has worked in the digital sector for over 20 years. Nick has interest in a number of SaaS technology platforms, and Evifile is his most recent investment. He has expanded both IDS and Evifile to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia, and is highly knowledgeable about the differences between those destinations and how to navigate their various cultures. So please welcome my panelists. And now I'd like to ask each of you, starting to my left, if you could please give a short synopsis, no more than 2 minutes, of your experience in taking your business to the MENA region.
Sure. So I'm Achille, and we operate a loyalty engine called White Label Loyalty, and it powers enterprise businesses. And we got introduced to the Middle Eastern market through an RFP originally. and it was an RFP to build a loyalty program that powers Dubai as a country. And it was with Dubai Holding, which, if you don't know, it's the Sheikh's company itself. And I think there was 16 vendors from all over the world because they wanted the best solution out there. And of course we won it. So we won that tender. Then we started that implementation process. And when you work with government in the region, it's pretty stringent because it was the Sheikh's company as well. So we have very high profile people actually using the app. Probably sure we have some of the royal family's contact details, all that stuff in the loyalty engine. So it was very important that it was very secure. The compliance checklist was pretty intense, but we've been working with them now for over 3 years. So we've been in that market. It's a solution that allows you to enroll your bank cards, and when you spend money across Dubai, you earn points and cashback, and the program keeps expanding all the time. And if you rent a property from Dubai Holding, you get 1% of your property rentals as cashback as well. And then you can spend that across thousands of locations, from shopping malls to restaurants to hotels. I think next phase they're going to add Emirates to that as well. So it's a very exciting proposition, but we're now also looking and working in Saudi and the rest of that MENA region.
Fabulous. Manny.
Hi everyone, thank you for your afternoon. So run a digital marketing agency, some of you might have seen our brand on Climb. So it was actually our client that had pain points in terms of service delivery, and I think you'll notice that. So if you're thinking about going to Dubai, your services are needed because of the quality of the service you can deliver will pretty much outperform what's available in that kind of region as well. So we were working with this client called TGP International down in London on Covent Garden and food and beverage. They got Expo City in terms of food and beverage as a contract. I got a call from the managing partner, fancy coming over to the UAE, went and explored it. Perfect timing, because let's be honest, Liz Truss at that time, when we set up, it was May 2023, and just before that we had Liz Truss tank the economy. So I was like, well, better to do than to get out of the UK and look at other opportunities and markets. And the first piece of work we did was COP28, and I joined the British Chamber of Commerce delegation, and I was there just exploring, and it's gone from strength to strength, and we now have 5 clients out in the UAE that have grown organically. It's all a virtual office. We do everything from here in Leeds, ironically, but we're fully integrated and set up in the UAE, and I've just come back from Dubai a few weeks ago after having to renew my visa for another 2 years because of the opportunity growth that's out there.
Fabulous. Michael.
Right, yes, thanks for the introduction. Yes, our technology uses very little water. Basically, innovative is very tiny droplets of water with the roots exposed, and the roots absorb just what they need when they need it. Nothing is wasted. And then we had been growing in Kenya and also in Scotland and in the UK. And then we got the inquiry from Saudi Arabia, who said, right, I want you to go big, do a turnkey project right in the middle of the desert. I said, I'll do that. So they wanted a proposal pretty quickly, wanted a price. So I came up with something, just had no idea what a greenhouse would cost or anything, and went for it. So, and even the product, they wanted seed potato tubers. I gave them that idea. They'd never been grown in the MENA region. They always imported that, such a crucial staple crop, and especially on the seed. But anyway, just within about 8 months later, we built a full greenhouse, producing about 1 million, and then operated it, producing about 1 million seed tubers a year, 33,000 potato plants, and just uses 3 meters cubed of water per day. So it shows what you can do there, even in the middle of a desert, and produce. So yeah, it's a great place to work, I think. Obviously, lots of challenges, more than you'd probably expect, but just making things happen. But it shows you can actually do it and achieve something like that in such a place.
Super. Nick?
Yeah, IDS help start-up businesses and scale-up businesses. And we kind of got a name for ourselves helping those scale-ups. And so we got invited out to help businesses that were in Dubai, Abu Dhabi first. So we looked at those businesses and we provided consultancy from afar. And that, as we built up a little bit of a relationship with providing those consultancies, you got a little bit of respect back. And over the years, I had some knowledge of Abu Dhabi, but had no intention of moving over there, no intention of opening a business there. It was just kind of enjoyable to be appreciated, I suppose. And then we started working more with AWS, and AWS was a big part of the way that we were scaling some of our scale-up SaaS businesses, and AWS wanted to do more in that region. So they kind of semi-sponsored us to go do more in that region, and because we already had some clients there, I thought, I didn't take the Liz Truss thing, but I just thought it was probably right. We'd looked at that region, and IDS had already expanded into Europe. We'd done some stuff in America. We'd done some things in Canada. I've even worked in Nigeria, but without going there. So it just seemed like it was the right time to go over there, and we were greeted with open arms. But well, we'll talk about the other experiences. But in general, what they're doing with their free zones, what they're doing with their support of fast scale-ups is really good. And there was a lot of lessons to bring back to the UK. So naturally, opening an office there, putting some of my people out there, sharing some experiences is why we ended up there. Yeah.
Great. Manny, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned all the opportunities you see out there. Can you talk a little bit to our audience about what opportunities specifically do you see in the MENA region?
The whole region's like a breath of fresh air, if I'm completely honest with you. I mean, they used to say America's the land of opportunity. I'd just say it's MENA now. The challenges they face are, you've got places like Saudi Arabia that are investing billions of pounds into upscaling technology and innovation, but they're lacking the tech and the service delivery, which most of you in the room and people like yourself, Nick, and that we have. So we can outperform local suppliers with the experience and what we have here in the UK or what you might deliver in the US. So what I didn't find out, obviously I mentioned we work with Expo City, we're still working with them for a while, is that we were put up against a local agency and outperformed them 4-1 with a lower budget. And now we've taken on the event space. So without even me knowing, we've been put side by side by another agency. But we're more reactive, we're better, our delivery, our dashboard, everything's just more technology advanced in the way that they want.
They were bigger organisations as well.
Hugely bigger organisations.
Because they have money, the money is invested quite heavily, but the experience isn't catching up, they're behind us.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, it's still a bit backwards in terms of processes and systems. So when we come forward with our ideas and how we do things, to them it's like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, why aren't we getting this level of service or level of delivery before? And then they get used to it and they want it. And that's why my client took me out there, because they said, we don't want to work with local agencies. What you've delivered in London, I need you to deliver in Dubai. And I was happy enough to say yes, because I thought I'd top up the tan and go out there and see how it goes. But yeah, there's so much opportunities. And since then, it's like a referral business. It's like every conversation is, how can I help you, or how can you help me? And it's just straight down to element. There's no swings and roundabouts in terms of that kind of element. So there's so much opportunity. And then we've kind of now started doing projects in Saudi Arabia. But to go off topic, it's like Middle East is such a central point in terms of location. It's 7 hours on a flight. It's 3 hours time difference between the UK, during time savers, 4 hours during winter and autumn. But you're also connected to Asia as well. As a time difference if you can set up an office out there. So you don't realise as a geolocation the opportunities you have and the bigger international brands you have. And we've now been working with UK clients that came on board with us because they realised we have a presence in Middle East because they're based in Oman and US and Australia. So the growth opportunities are.
So if I'm an entrepreneur here now and I'm looking at that region, how do I choose which country I should go to first? I think it's maybe a question for you, Nick, because you're in several countries there now.
Well, I'll give the answer from my point of view of how I've done it, but there's probably a larger question there. I've followed my clients, so if the region is buoyant for your service, then you should be considering it. If you then need certain resource to provide your service that need to be on the ground, then that's another challenge. If you can do it remotely, then the barriers the barriers are easier. What I would suggest is that I haven't gone to any country that I haven't first worked with remotely and first found clients. Now, Dubai and MENA is a little bit interested on clients because you can win a client that hasn't actually paid you yet. They say all the right things and you've got the contracts through, but it not necessarily. But yeah, I've followed clients there because then you get to understand. But when you start to commit to visas and offices and things like that, which some of these regions expect you to before they give you the work, you can have all the MOUs and promises, but they need you to be on the ground. To be fair, America's a bit the same, the US is a bit the same in certain areas on there. It's not different like that. But that's how I would follow it. Get the opportunity first, make a relationship out there, whether it's a client, whether it's a supplier, it doesn't matter. You need that first basis of relationship.
That's a really good point. Michael, how did you choose Saudi Arabia as your first location?
Very good, very opportunistic, quite a story. I jumped on a cheap TUI flight Sunday to Sharm el Sheikh for £200. I managed to wangle myself into COP when it was there at Sharm el Sheikh. Happened to be on the UAE stand. Everyone around me was interested. One guy in particular, he said, "Oh, I've got to tell my boss about you." Then we happened to win the finalists for the Food Tech Challenge in Abu Dhabi, so they paid for flights and got us over there. And then I managed to meet his boss, and we call her the whirlwind, but she just loved our technology, thought it was a bee's knees and all that. And then just out of the blue, I got an email from someone who she'd passed our details. "Michael's a lovely guy, you've got to talk to him," or whatever. I talked to him and he said, "I've got a client in Saudi Arabia." And then just put a proposal together. We didn't really understand it. We thought we had to bid for under $1 million, but then it went more or whatever. And then we had the meeting and basically, "Right, I want you to deliver. Can you start tomorrow? How much money? Tell me now." I had no idea, but they wanted, as I said, the full turnkey solution. And even the board were saying, "Oh, this is very risky," or whatever. But I said, "I'll take it on." And we just took it on. So you can just see it. You've just got to really go for any opportunities which happen. And that's why we ended up in Saudi Arabia. And they were willing to put the money up front, pay in advance ahead, and to allow us to really scale. The most we've done is sort of 6 A-frames. This was 22 A-frames. So it was a massive scale up. So a real good opportunity.
And would you say that is the typical experience, Ash, of people paying upfront and delivering very quickly?
Not typical, I would say. Yeah, I think you learn when you work in the region. I think it's, just understanding the culture as well. Because, here in the UK, we go in and this is the price. When you go to a supermarket, you don't negotiate. You just pay what says on the price. But the market over there, they expect a little bit of give and take. And the sooner you understand that, the better really for you. But I think, when you go in with your price, you agree on everything, then actually it goes to procurement. And procurement are tasked to actually get a better deal. And actually measured based on the better deal they get. So if you're not prepared for that, you might shoot yourself in the foot sometimes. But ultimately, I think, if you can get payment up front, then that's always the preferred one. And you can, you get questioned about it, but you can always say, this is always what we do for the first deal that we do. And then later on, you can give them payment terms. But everybody will try to get longer payment terms by default.
So it's a culture of negotiation, you would say?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah. It's,
And I must say, I did have that later on, and they kept wanting to drop the price, but I would add things in, and then they did set milestones, so, but still, we navigated it.
It's a nice thing, actually,
it is negotiable.
If you're prepared for it, then it's actually quite nice to...
A little bit of barter.
Yeah,
Correct.
Barter, yeah.
And if or when, as inevitably things do go wrong, what recourse do you have? Because it's obviously a very different legal system, etc., from what you're used to in the UK or in Europe.
It depends how you set up. So you might hear free zone and mainland as terms being thrown out. So there's not real much difference now compared to, let's say, 2 years ago when probably you, me, Ash set up. I'm set up as a mainland company, which basically means it's Bobble Digital Marketing Co. LLC. If you're free zone, it just says FZ at the end. Now, if you actually set up in a free zone in DIFC, which is Finance Centre in Dubai, for example, you can trade under UK laws in terms of terms and conditions with your contracts, which not many people know about. So that means if you have a dispute with something, As you have your contracts here in the UK, you can enforce them in the DIFC free zone centre, and most others you're on DSO, which is Dubai Silicon Oasis, and then you've got other elements. So there are benefits of being free zone in terms of it's cheaper to get in with your visa and elements, and you've got access to other businesses, and predominantly they're all other businesses that have generally come out of the UAE, not set up within the UK, of other people like yourselves in the room, people on this panel. So you do get some protection depending on how you do. We did it differently because I wanted to be mainland. I wanted my entity to be in Dubai and registered in Dubai. The reason I did that back then was because I knew we were going to be working on Expo City. It's a government entity. I want to be on their supplier list, which gives better credibility, working with more government entities in the future. Once you're in, it's like when you get a government contract here. Once you're in, you're in. We all know that. But getting that first contract over the line is very, very difficult. So once you're in, and it makes life a lot more easier, difficult. But I can't transition to free zone now. It'd be too painful to do that, but there's no point for me to do it. But because of I'm LLC, I'm on UAE terms and jurisdiction. In free zone, you can protect yourself a bit more by doing it, but I'm happy to take that risk because it means I can do more.
But Manny, would it be obviously if you're not lucky enough to land your client straight away, but you do believe in the area, which there's a lot of reason to believe in the area, there is a great market wave coming over there, or is already there. Would a free zone not be a good way of introducing, because then you get surrounded by other businesses and you might win your client through the free zone to start with. You can then become mainland after, no?
Yeah, like I said, there's no difference between the two now, and I'd recommend free zone for anyone in the room, because like I said, you can enact your UK engagement letters and business terms of business in the UK, especially if you go through DIFC, and it's cheaper now to get a visa as well. The cost of setting up is like $4,000 now to get your Emirates ID visa, a hot desk as well, DIFC, and you're supported by all these tech startups around within it, and you get a space for your desk and etc. And you've got all this collaboration going on as well.
Is that typical though? Because I've heard from family, getting a work visa may be relatively straightforward, but then getting your husband or wife to get out on that visa requires going back to the place where you got married in a little village in Austria 25 years ago, and suddenly getting that. My brother is going through that right now. And getting that certified from multiple authorities before you can then even get a spousal visa. So are we saying this is a very digitally literate and advanced region where these things happen very, very quickly? Or are we saying this is more of a still rather bureaucratic, paper-based business?
It's both, unfortunately, and this is what you realise in the Middle East in general. I found this when we were doing work with clients in Saudi Arabia, which was even more backwards, and UK, for UAE, for example, UAE, they expect me to run the ad spend and build them for ad spend. I don't do that at all with any other country I work with. That's back to front, which created logistical nightmares instead of setting up an international bank account to hold the ad spend into instead of our main UAE bank account. But the first time you do it, it is going to be painful. I want to be transparent with you, getting that visa and everything. And that's just for the business side. And what you're talking about is, if you then want to bring your family over, you need to do the research. And yes, if you don't have that marriage certificate and you've married someone, let's say from Italy or something like that, you have to go get documentation.
Yeah, but there are agencies set up now which are doing it very fast. So if it is a work visa you're looking for, and it is a company and a decent size client, the process is pretty strong. It can be more expensive if you want to make the process easier for you or faster. I think 4,000 is probably about the cheapest we could say, but it's probably more like 10 if you're wanting it to be done very quickly. However, if you want to bring your family over and things like that, that comes outside of the free zone professional scenario, and you're back to their old way of doing things, and it's very paper based, and you still have to turn up and have your health check and your blood's taken and X-ray, yeah, and you've got to be in the country and wait around for it, even though it's a brilliant service when it is there. The private medical over there is amazing, but they want you to. They said it could be up to 3 weeks. So if you're running a business and you need to be in different countries, and they're saying just hang around in Dubai for 3 weeks while we decide when to bring you in. That's a bit of a nightmare. To be fair, I didn't expect that it was 3 or 4 days, but they warn you to be there for 3 weeks.
Right.
But your renewal will be quicker. My
Renewal's
which was
quicker.
in May, took an hour. An hour. I had my Emirates ID the next day delivered to me. So you don't have to be there for 2 weeks because all everything's already in the system. So all I did was go in, do a blood test. And the only reason it was an hour was because the queue,
It's another
the wait
blood
time
test.
was 50 minutes. The blood test took 10.
Another blood test. Okay.
No, I guess once it's set up, it's easy. Even when you travel to Dubai, for instance, you don't. This facial recognition, you just go straight through.
Yeah, it's easier than
So
getting
it
back
gets
into the
easier
UK,
when you-
isn't it?
Yeah.
And how important are relationships with officials, governments, and so on? Ash, what's your experience of that?
It's a relationship-driven environment. I think Dubai less so than maybe Saudi, because Dubai, 90% are expats. So it's kind of, the people you deal with are not from Dubai usually, right? So it's, you just deal with lots of different cultures, different nationalities, and but when you work with government, then they kind of like to meet, and that's why we decided to actually have people on the ground as well, just to get that. Today, before we came in here, I had a call with, and they just wanted to speak to the CEO, as well, just things like that. So I think relationships are very important, and I think other things that are important as well, which is important for the crowd here, is data residency. In Dubai, you can get away with it, but in Saudi, they really want the data to be in Saudi. And there's no AWS in Saudi, so again, that's another thing to consider before you go into the market. You can go really far down, and then, by the way, where's the data hosted? And if you host it somewhere else, then that could add several months into your, and price as well, right? So,
Michael, what was your experience with data and IP in Saudi specifically?
Well, what was on the relationships? I think rather than data, it was a really good relationship we developed, and we're told once you're in there, you're there for life or whatever. We over-delivered, or at least delivered. They couldn't believe what we delivered. The CEO came and looked at the facility, held up these seed tubers, so strategic for the country, and it was almost all definite that we'd build another facility twice that size, and we'll do the certification in the country, and we do the multiplication. Everything looked good. We went for lunch, and then suddenly, out of the blue, really, right, we want to give you the money, lots of business, but we want exclusivity. Sorry, I thought I made that clear right from the beginning, for just one project. We can't do that. And not only was it for seed tubers, but it was for all crops and for the whole of the MENA, not just Saudi or GCC. And I said, I can't do that. And it wasn't very pleasant. And that was almost it was the end of the relationship. And we'd so over-delivered. I think we did use an agent, and it does seem key. Often you need that agent. I'm not so sure in Dubai, but we needed an agent to handle the bureaucracy, make things happen, because this was a really big, large organization in Saudi. Whether that was a communication and promising that, exclusivity, but we couldn't offer that, and there was nothing in return. So, so basically, we lost out big time, and we all expected so much. I think at the moment it's probably a lose, 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 and for something like that, which we could never give. So be aware, always.
When you say you lost out, though, did you got paid?
Oh, we got paid for the job, the project, but we absolutely really gave our all to it, expected a lot of prospects, and it would really take the company to a next level, then to suddenly, from 1 minute to the next.
Your contract, but they changed the terms of the next contract.
There was no next contract when there was going to be the next contract. So, so it's a real pity, I think, facilities sitting there not being used now.
I mean, that can happen in the UK. However, even Dubai, if the Emirati are not on board with the direction of travel, specifically if it's a very big project, you're going to struggle. You have to. It's the business sense, the business people that you're dealing with, and there's the Emirati that are signing off on it that have to be aligned. You were in farming. Which part of the area? So it was very much governmental. Was it?
No, I don't think so. It was a private company, albeit 40%, from the state.
Because I think you would have been safer with the government if you made that. If it's slightly separate out.
But although that can be a pain point, I love that about the Middle East because it's taken. We're 100 billion plus over budget on HS2 here. It's not even going to come to Leeds, and look how great Leeds is. They've realised something's not working. There's no bureaucracy, there's no red tape, there's no ex-government that has a panel of people. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. Right, we're not going to waste our money. You're out because you did a bad job. Find somebody else to come in and deliver. You get on with it. And it gets done very, very quickly. Each time I go back, every like 3-4 weeks. I mean, in six months, they built an entire rail track service. 6 months. It's so fast, but it's hard to keep up sometimes. And that's what's refreshing because you've got to be able to deliver if you're going to go out there as well. But there are pain points, don't get me wrong. No country entries you enter into is easy. But when you see the scale of movement, you've got to be on board.
And is that specific to the GCC, or would you say that applies across the whole MENA arena?
The whole MENA arena. I mean, Dubai leads the way, and then Abu Dhabi's kind of fallen behind. And I'd say if you're really going to start looking at somewhere, probably look at Saudi Arabia and Riyadh, because that's like 10 years behind, Dubai, and everyone follows Dubai's example.
Right. Right. I'll come back. I'll leave a few minutes at the end for questions. I've got one more question, and then we'll come to the audience for questions, if that's all right. If I could ask each of you, going around again, one piece of advice that you would give to an entrepreneur from here who's deciding to set up in the MENA arena, what would that be?
Well, I would say, I think what Nick said is true. It's always good to go in with a client or a prospect and really kind of investigate the market a bit. What we did, we got a client, but then instead of going full in, we actually attended GITEX, which is a big event that happens, just to dip our toes into it. We met some prospects, started talking, and just really seeing how quickly it would progress so we could get a sense for the market. One thing to consider before you go to the market is also to look at the maturity of the business, because everything looks great, but when you look under the scenes, sometimes they run on, sometimes quite old systems. So, we've had scenarios when they know they want a loyalty solution, the solution that we have is exactly what they need, but they have to change the ERP system or implement and CRM that they didn't have. And we're thinking, what? How come you're such a big company, you're running on spreadsheet, So I think
that's an opportunity in its own right, though.
Yeah, it's a massive opportunity. So for people like Nick, who does transformation, it's perfect. Or you want to elevate the digital marketing, yeah.
Thank you.
A few things, just because we've just renewed out there, is don't go out there and set up until you've actually been out to the area. So go to Dubai, go to Abu Dhabi for a few days each, explore the region. My advice is connect via, I'm part of the British Chamber of Commerce, Dubai. The network you will build out there is really good. Go out there and have at least 6 months of business costs ready to go. Cash is king. Getting money out of businesses, no matter how, whether the government or anything, is like getting blood out of a stone sometimes. So you got to have good impact, and that's why we bill up front in the UAE, whereas in the UK, it's at the end of the month on variable terms because we know we're going to get the money. So just be careful with that. Go out there, explore it. Then don't set up out there unless you have an actual business opportunity or service you can deliver to set up out there. You don't want to leave with like a bad reputation that you've not delivered on something. Not that, that would be a big concern, but just make sure you protect yourselves in that sense. And when you do go out there, hire Bobble to do your digital marketing.
Does anything? Is that one though? Okay.
I think it's very much what I said. In a way, you need the agent's really key person, and their main priority is their client because they'll use them for a long time. Even though the board was saying, you should try and talk direct with them. So I think he was telling the client, even when I was there in their offices, oh, you've got exclusivity. I said, no, they haven't. They haven't got it. So I made it quite clear to him, and I think it went wrong there in the communication. So then, for something as small as that, so if they were being promised something, and I made it quite clear to the agents that they're not going to get that unless if they make it worth our while. Of course, we're up for exclusivity. So something like that. So make sure if you do use a middleman or agent, or try not to, or at least when it's crucial things like this, make sure it's really clear and transparent where you stand. You don't want, that yeah, what I've said, yeah, you want to make sure clear understanding between all parties.
And I think this more just reiterates what you guys have said, which is you need to go out there. But if you're going to go out there and you're time short, money short, speak to the embassy, speak to the chamber, speak to the free zones, ask them to introduce you to, one, the Emirati that are representing it, because they are very accessible. They like meeting face to face and they know you're flying out there. Half holiday, half work. Because you need to understand a bit of the culture. Abu Dhabi is a very different mindset to Dubai. Riyadh's a completely different place again. So you'll have a fit, you'll have some traction, but you've got to work out that traction, and not just from a business sense, from a kind of understanding where you fit in the ecosystem. I went out there to understand how we could help their ecosystem and then fit in around that ecosystem. I had suggestions that was the case. So, and that's the research that you do, just sensibly anyway.
And this is probably, I forgot about this, this is probably the most important one. Learn to play paddle. You think I'm joking, but sports like paddle, golf, you need to learn to network. Out there, it's more who you know as much as what you know, and that matters more in the MENA region than anything else. Networking with the right people, be in the right rooms. There's like events that the British Chamber of Commerce do in London now, in Manchester, that you can attend. There's a company called Dubai Collective that now does the London Collective, where you meet business and elements. Network with people that are in Dubai, that operate in Dubai. I mean, network like it's the last thing you can do, like if you're dating or on dating profile.
It's like it used to be, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's going back in time of the way that you used to network. And it is, playing sport, going for meals, yeah, it is.
So make sure you charge up your social battery.
Practice your golf. We had some questions from the audience. Yes, please.
So, Fareed Khan from the Arab Business Council. What about the legal frameworks we find in the UK? If you're overdue an invoice and they're still not paying, saying, "Oh, we'll pay at the end of the month." What's the legal recourse there? Is it you have to learn the Arabic language to placate them, or what do you have to do? Because I found this with many of our businesses that they don't pay up, even though there's a contract in place.
Well, two things. Free zone, if you're in the IFC, then you're protected by UK law regulations, and you go through that in the court system. But my advice, and that we would think saying, is bill up front, don't start any work. And I make that very clear in my contracts. We're not going to do any work until payment is in the account within 7 days of when we've invoiced it. Otherwise, we stop the work. We make that very, very clear, and you have to be very transparent. So I actually don't have those problems, and I very carefully pick which clients and who I go after based on referrals. So if you do your research, you shouldn't have that issue, but it is a problem, and I have seen it. And I have had that issue with Expo City where campaigns need to go live, but they've not even sent us the ad spend. And I'm like, well, it's not going to come out of my bank account, so the campaign's not going to go.
And I would say that your contract doesn't, if they're not paying you, they're either trying to drag it out just to take advantage of dragging it out, or they're not intending on doing it. If you've gone with a free zone, or you have a relationship with some other element, you need to use the locals to put pressure on them, is what I would say. The legal, you've still got the legal track to take. It's much quicker if you can speak to somebody and just say, come on, they want the service, why are they not paying? It's our culture, we don't pay until the last minute.
Relationships, I guess, to that point. But having that champion on the inside, you can say, come on, we delivered this. And usually that's the best way to do it, because you don't really want to go legal, especially if you're in the middle of a contract as well. So, yeah, I think the relationship is what makes it happen. But we also charge up front.
Is there an option to go legal if all else fails?
There is, but
legal?
you would use local businesses to go legal,
right.
and preferably, if you're a small business starting out there, you would use the network that you've just signed into, i.e. the free zones. So what they're designed for, it's a soft landing or a soft air landing.
And if I'm an employee out there, but as an expat, do I have any legal recourse if I get, obviously in the UK, if I get dismissed, I can file a grievance or claim wrongful dismissal or any of these things.
You do, but the the agreement can be different. So yeah, you just read your contract well. But I mean, if they're working for our businesses, we're obviously giving them similar assurances that they'd get in the UK. But out there is, it depends on the type of job and the type of.
There's actually a couple of laws that have come out now. So if you're a company, you employ people, you've got to provide their like private medical, in terms of insurance. As an individual, if you're working out there on, let's say, employment visa, you have to get what they call unemployment insurance. But then you have a certain amount of time to get yourself another job. Otherwise, get on a plane and go back to the UK. They don't take passers-by. But again, I like that. Yeah.
Yes, there's another question.
Just coming back to your contracts piece and getting payment, what's your experiences of dealing with withholding tax? Because I found it can be tricky if you don't know about it on the different rates.
Did you say holding tax?
Withholding tax.
Withholding tax. I can't say I've had it. I mean, we're VAT registered out there, so we have our accountants. All I can say is join stuff like the British Chamber of Commerce and be friends with the UK Embassy and build relationships with people that know the laws here in the UK and in the UAE. So our accountants out there, Redmonds, operate in the UK and UAE, know the difference between the two and have tax elements. I just pay them to do that, so that's not really a problem for me. It's a problem.
We used to try and write it into the contract so that they grossed it up for that, or I would gross up my contract to cover the withholding tax if it was up to 25% or whatever of the invoice value.
Well, we only have charged, it's only 5% in terms of like on top of an invoice, but you just make it very clear it's plus X tax on top. Just be very transparent in terms of costing. So I always used to quote actual ad spend with VAT, service fee, agency fee, plus VAT, this is the final amount, this is what we're gonna invoice you for on these dates.
Yeah, some markets are also a bit different. That, we got into contract stage, everything was sorted, and then they're like, can we have your stamp? I was like, huh? So it needed to be stamped, and we need to request, so if you don't have a stamp, then it takes a bit of time to buy a stamp on Amazon.
That's where there's so much opportunity, because it's so backwards. It's like I raised that evidence of media plan to Expo City. They didn't send me a PO, which I've got to stamp, I've got to sign, scan, and send back. And I was like, I used to do this 10 years ago for Dentsu and Caro. This is outdated process systems. But again, I have a really good accountancy firm, because when I send it to them saying I need this back in 15 minutes, they have my stamp it, scan it, send it. I scan it, send it, sign it, send it back off, and then you cross your fingers and make sure the money lands in the account in the next 24 hours.
I'd put those things down to just getting used to the area. If you're speaking to the right people, they know how to deal with it. But yeah, there is some inconvenience involved in some of it. Yeah.
And I noticed building in the middle of the desert, but if you want things, they were meant to provide scissor lifts, we didn't get them, and workers or whatever, but then you as a British company, you can't actually procure all of these things because you don't have a Saudi company and all the paperwork, and you have to, as you can imagine, get around it one way or another, but maybe pay over the top for the goods. So it's all of these restrictions. I remember having, as you said, trying to put my fingerprint and signing on it and trying to create something which is as good as a stamp. So.
One point to kind of outline as well is that the British brand is really strong in the Middle East. So I think
traditional British brand.
Yeah, traditional British brand is strong. If you're a British company going over there, people will see you at high regard. Despite Brexit and everything that's happening, we still have a very strong brand, and I think we should just keep investing, because when you go to events, sometimes you see country stands and they invest a lot, and the British stand is quite small. I think we need to push and leverage and ride the wave of that.
It seemed more respected than a lot of other countries you can go to. So
you're already in a really good start if you want to look at the market as a whole, I would say.
Great, thank you. We have unfortunately run out of time, I'm being reminded. But I'd like to thank my panelists for all their good advice. I think we've all learned a lot. It's about building the relationships and making sure that you really understand what the cultural specificities are in each location that you're going to. And then, yeah, ride the wave, as you just said. So thank you all very much for your time here today.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Yeah.